Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to the Department of Justice webinar, Application Checklist and Final Q&A. My name is Christina, and I will be your moderator for today. With that, it is my pleasure to turn the webinar over to our subject matter experts from the Department of Justice. Our presenters today will be Melissa Harrington from the COPS Office and Julius Dupree from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. We also have several panelists from the Department of Justice joining us today as well. Starting our webinar will be our first presenter, Melissa Harrington. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you, Christina, and welcome everyone to our final applicant webinar for the 2020 application solicitation season. During today's webinar, we're going to provide a quick overview of the CTAS solicitation, the 8 purpose areas that you can apply for, some application requirements, and also some tips and resources. What is CTAS? The Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation is the overarching structure under which tribes can apply for up to 8 separate purpose areas or grant programs through one single application. How does it work? Applicants, you can select the DOJ component or program purpose area that best address your individual public safety, criminal and juvenile justice, and/or victimization needs. You can apply for up to 8 purpose areas if you so choose, all on one application. Under CTAS, the program purpose areas focus on enhancing law enforcement, preventing and controlling juvenile delinquency, strengthening the juvenile justice system, improving the investigation and prosecution of child abuse cases, addressing the needs of survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, sex trafficking, and other crimes. And my colleague, Julius Dupree, will provide further information about each of the purpose areas towards the end of this presentation. We have a great team that works in CTAS. Specifically, we have 5 DOJ components: the Office of Community Orienting Policing Services, the COPS Office, the Office of Justice Program, which is made up of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, the Office for Victims of Crime, OVC, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, OJJDP, and the Office on Violence Against Women. For more information on each of the DOJ components, as well as the CTAS 2020 solicitation and all of the application materials, please visit our Tribal Justice webpage, which is www.justice.gov/tribal. The goals under CTAS falls under the 8 purpose areas that you could apply for. Purpose Area 1 is the COPS Office, and the primary goal of Purpose Area 1 is to expand the implementation of community policing needs and meet the most serious needs of law enforcement in tribal nations. Purpose Area 2 is called the Comprehensive Tribal Justice Systems Strategic Planning Program, and it's a collaborative effort from all 5 DOJ components. However, it is overseen by the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA. While other purpose areas may focus on a particular area within public safety and justice, Purpose Area 2 purpose is to initiate a broad assessment of a tribe's current justice system and to then produce a comprehensive plan to further develop and enhance that justice system. Also under BJA are Purpose Area 3 and Purpose Area 4. Purpose Area 3 provides funding for the justice systems and alcohol and substance abuse sections. That goal is to assist tribes with projects that focus on tribal justice system, alcohol, and substance abuse, or both. Under Purpose Area 4, that goal, which is corrections and correctional alternatives, that goal is to assist tribes with building or enhancing justice system infrastructure capacity by providing funding to support the renovation and/or expansion of existing facilities or establishment of prefabricated or permanent modular buildings to serve as correctional facilities or alternative treatment facilities or multipurpose justice centers. The Tribal Governments Program Purpose Area 5 is funded by the Office on Violence Against Women, or OVW. As noted on your screen, OVW focuses on enhancing the tribe's ability to respond to violent crimes against Indian women, particularly domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and sex trafficking. Also, the goal is to enhance victim safety and develop education and prevention strategies. OVC, which is the Office of Victims Against Crime, funded Purpose 6 area, which improves the investigation, prosecution, and handling of cases of criminal child abuse and neglect, and particularly child sexual abuse cases. The goal is to provide funding and tribal and technical assistance to help communities develop, establish, and operate programs designed to improve the investigation, prosecution, and handling of cases of criminal child abuse and neglect, particularly child sexual abuse cases. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention oversees Purposes Area 8 and the Juvenile Tribal Healing to Wellness Courts Program and Purpose Area 9. The goal of Purpose Area 8, Juvenile Tribal Healing to Wellness Courts Program, is to enhance the capacity of tribal courts to respond to the alcohol-related issues of youth under the age of 21. Purpose Area 9, Tribal Youth Program, funds, support, and enhance tribal efforts to prevent and control juvenile delinquency and strengthening a fair and beneficial juvenile justice system. Again, all applicants, you may request up to all of these purpose areas if you so choose. Under CTAS 2020, we are currently open. We are less than 2 weeks away with our end date, which is February 25th, 2020, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please, we encourage you to work on your applications and submit them sooner rather than later to prevent any heartache, any undue stress, as well as any maybe technical issues. So please try to submit as you can. And again, we're looking at the grant deadline of 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, February 25th. We hope to make our awards no later than the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30th, and all of the start dates will be October 1st on. If you're interested in applying under CTAS, which I know you guys are, you need to be a federally recognized Indian tribal government. Tribal consortia and tribal designees are also eligible to apply under the OVW and OVC purpose areas. For CTAS 2020, the following documents that you see on the screen are required to be in your application submission. The Tribal Community and Justice Profile, the Purpose Area Narrative for each requested purpose area that you're interested in applying for, the Purpose Area Timeline, again, for each requested purpose area that you're applying for. So you need a narrative for each purpose area, and you need a timeline for each purpose area, and a budget detail worksheet and narrative. Those 4 items we'll talk about, and those 4 items must be included in your application submission to move forward. And as you can also see, the percentages, that's how much the percentage of each of these elements. So the biggest portion of your score is, as you can see, the narrative of 50%. The profile is 30%, the timeline is 5%, and the budget detail worksheet and narrative is 15%. And we'll talk about each of these. The community and justice profile must not exceed 15 pages. Please respond to the 7 questions on the profile template, and the profile template is designed to enable a tribe to describe its community strengths, resources, challenges, and needs. You may enter as much or as little text as you need to fully describe your community, but again, the total number of pages for the entire tribal narrative profile should not exceed more than 15 pages. The purpose area program narrative, each of the narratives have their own template. Please refer to each of the templates to determine the allowed page limit, and please follow that page limit for each purpose area. The purpose area is a critical piece of your application. As I said, it's 50% of your score. And the purpose area narrative is, we would like you to clearly describe the issue and problem to be addressed and the measurable impact of the project. Describe how the project activities are tied to the program's goals and objectives. And please include a plan for measuring the success of your project. You're not required to use the template. However, you must address all the questions within the narrative. The timeline is now separate. Last year we combined it with the narrative, but this year it is back to its own standalone document. And also the application timeline, you will need to submit one for each purpose area that you are applying for, all on one single document. We also have, again, a timeline template for you to follow, and we do encourage you to use this single template. And this timeline is a detailed timeline for all purpose areas, which should include the entire period of the grant activities, to include your performance goals, your project milestones, and activity completion dates. It should assign responsibility and expected completion of each task by year and then by month or quarter. If awarded, grantees will be expected to update their timelines as appropriate when changes occur throughout the life of the award. Again, the application timeline template, as with all of our application materials, can be found in GMS. The Budget Detail Workbook makes up 15% of your application score. The Budget Detail Excel Workbook is a user-friendly worksheet that is designed to calculate your totals. Therefore, applicants are strongly encouraged to use the workbook when completing your proposed budget. The fillable versions of the Budget Detail Worksheet, Budget Narrative, and the Demographics Form for Purpose Area 1 applicants can be downloaded when you log into GMS. The proposed budget must be consistent with the program narrative, and some tips on the screen is essentially for you to do the math, provide calculations and total costs for each expense, support your request, clearly link the expenses to your proposal. Please stay within budget and know your timeline. For example, some of the awards are for 3 years. So please review the CTAS solicitation and know your timeline for each of the proposed budgets. And some reminders when you're drafting these critical application elements is just be yourself. For the narrative, you're painting a picture in words. Use simple and concise language. The information should be organized. Be realistic about how you will achieve your goals. Get feedback from those who may run the project. And make sure your proposal is consistent with the purpose area goals and objectives. And those can be found in our CTAS solicitation. In addition to the required application elements, there are some additional items, additional documents that should be included in your application submission. The application cover sheet, the application disclosure of high-risk status, the application disclosure of pending or active applications. Tribal designee onlys need to submit a tribal authority to apply. Disclosure of lobbying activities, a current indirect cost rate if applicable, financial management and system of internal controls questionnaire for all applicants except for Purpose Area 1, and other attachments such as resumes or a prior OVC approved strategic plan. In our CTAS 2020 solicitation, we actually have an application checklist that you can refer to as you go through your application, just to make sure you have all of the pieces. The application cover sheet is an abstract of essentially your project for each purpose area. So if you're applying for 4 purpose areas, there should be 4 separate abstracts on your application cover sheet, which is 400 words or less, 500 words or less for applicants requesting funding in multiple purpose areas. And you should include a brief description of the project's purpose, the population to be served, and the activities that the applicant will implement to achieve the project's goals and objectives. Again, an abstract cover sheet, application cover sheet template is found in GMS. The applicant disclosure of high-risk status. If an applicant is currently designated as a high risk by a federal grant-making agency, you must include the following information that's on the screen. We've received some questions about the high risk. How do you find out if you're currently designated as high risk? There really is no central database an applicant can reference. You're just going to be required to self-report. And there is no form for you to fill out. You'll just simply submit a letter or statement that outlines your designation status. And even though you may not be labeled as high risk, you still need to submit a disclosure. And you will just submit a letter or a statement to say that your agency is not designated as high risk. The applicant disclosure of pending and active awards document should also be included. This is a written statement that should include the following on the screen: your name, the solicitation name, project name, and description of the project, and the point of contact at the applicable funding agency. The lobbying form should also be included. It must disclose the existence or non-existence of lobbying activities by completing and submitting the form SFLL with the fiscal year 2020 CTAS application. We also have the Financial Management and Systems of Controls questionnaire that needs to be submitted. You can download the form at the OJP website that's on your screen. It must be completed by your applicant's chief financial officer or equivalent, and again, you're going to upload that in GMS. Purpose Area 1 applicants, you do not have to fill this out. For Purpose Area 5 applicants, you are required to fill out the pre-award risk assessment questionnaire. The pre-award risk assessment should address all 10 questions and should not exceed 4 pages. The grant management system is a system that you will use to apply electronically for the CTAS solicitation. Please follow these steps to apply. Acquire a DUNS number, acquire or renew registration with SAM, acquire a GMS username and password, verify the SAM registration in GMS, search for the funding opportunity in GMS, register by selecting the Apply Online button associated with the solicitation title, and submit an application consistent with this solicitation by following the directions in GMS. Also in our CTAS solicitation, we have 1-800 numbers and websites if you need assistance with getting a DUNS number or SAM registration, as well as technical assistance with GMS and programmatic assistance through the Response Center. Here's a screenshot of using GMS, and if you do have technical issues or problems using the GMS system, on the screen, if you have questions, you may contact the GMS Support Help Desk, which I believe they're available 24/7, including on the weekends. You can call them at 1-888-549-9901, or you can email the GMS Help Desk, again, if you have questions as you're going through the GMS portion. And programmatic questions, you can call our Response Center, which is 1-800-421-6770, and we'll show that number later, as well as our email at tribalgrants@usdoj.gov. So any technical questions, please contact the GMS support hotline, and any programmatic type of questions, such as eligibility or any question that you might have about the purpose areas, you can call our DOJ Response Center. A lot of the application documents, you're going to be uploading them in GMS. So just a tip to just try to label them so we can understand them. An example on the screen is the file name is clearly labeled Purpose Area X Program Narrative, versus another example would be just OJJDP narrative. So please be specific with what the attachment is. Clearly label the attachment. And double check your SF424. The GMS system takes the information from the applicant's profile and populates the fields on the SF424. An applicant with a current active award must ensure that its GMS profile is correct. If the profile is not correct, the applicant should submit a grant adjustment notice, updating information on its GMS profile prior to applying. And on the screen, we ask that you enter new for a type of application. You enter the same legal name that appears on your prior award document. You will refer to the solicitation to determine your start and end dates for your potential grant award. The estimated funding must match the federal request in the budget detail worksheet, and the authorized representative must be someone with the authority to accept the federal award. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Julius Dupree, with the Bureau of Justice Assistance, to continue on with this webinar. Julius?
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of the tips and resources that can maybe help you as you all, near completion of your application. The Tribal Justice and Safety website is a great resource. We actually, there's information about solicitation on that website, training and technical assistance opportunities as well. There's a quick start application guide, so that's really designed to help serve as a guide or as a primary reference manual to assist CTAS applicants in preparing and submitting applications for funding. Then also the webinars that we're doing, for those of you who may have missed some of the prior webinars, you can currently access those recordings if you go to www.youtube.com/user/OJP-OCOM. We are also going to be updating our Tribal Justice and Safety website to include those webinars. We just haven't, that website just still needs to be updated. So for now, I would go to the YouTube site if you want to access some of the previous webinars. Okay, and also we've gotten over the years, we've gotten folks that have really wanted to get, some more guidance on actually grant writing. As a result of that, the OJP has actually responded by, coming out with an online guide for CTAS. So essentially, if you go to this online guide that's on our Tribal Justice and Safety website, it will really walk you through each component of like the CTAS application process, like all the components that Melissa talked about earlier, like your program narrative, your budget, profile, also, developing partnerships as needed. But it's a really good guide. If you haven't, hopefully you've already started your application, but if you would like to just kind of check and make sure you have all the critical components in place before you click submit, I would go through that online guide. It's not long, it's very user-friendly, so please check that out. And to access that, you can actually go to www.justice.gov/tribal/grants, and then you can locate that particular guide there. And also the information in this guide, even though it is designed for CTAS, it's actually probably transferable to a number of other different types of federal grant programs as well. So you may want to look at that if you're interested in applying for non-CTAS grants as well. Okay, so for those of you who may not know, but our applications go through a peer review process. So essentially what that means is we have folks that are justice professionals like yourself that work in the tribal justice field that actually participate in a panel in panels to review and score the applications. But anyone who's on the line that may be interested in becoming a peer reviewer, you have the option to do that. This particular opportunity does offer some funds for some payment for that service, as you can see, about $125 per application. You would have to maybe participate in an orientation call before starting to review, but there's no in-person meeting requirement, so you don't have to travel to Washington, D.C. or travel anywhere to participate in this process. But we are always seeking new reviewers because we really feel like it's, we feel like that gives really strength and integrity to our process, is to have folks that are like yourselves that are working in the field, either providing technical assistance or managing programs, to be part of this process. And so if you would like to be a peer reviewer, you can go to you can send an email to tribalgrants@usdoj.gov. And when you send that email, please include a resume or a curriculum vitae, and actually make sure you include peer review, or actually your subject line in your email to say peer reviewer candidate resume. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this because I know Melissa's already talked about a lot of these documents that are listed, but I would really like to emphasize that be sure to really upload all relevant documents in the GMS. And so, because what we see sometimes is folks may actually want to make a change to their application, or they're in a process of completing the application, and they say, oh, well, you know what, we forgot this attachment. And what they may do is they may upload an attachment, but then overwrite other information that they've already provided, or they may not include the other attachments that were previously uploaded that may need to be re-uploaded again. So it's really critical to just make sure you upload all your relevant documents, check to make sure all your files are uploaded before submitting your application. Okay, just a few grant writing tips I would like to share. Unless otherwise noted, be sure that you make sure that your program narrative is double spaced using the standard 12-point font. As far as make sure you set up your sections and your files in a logical manner. So each solicitation actually contains specific selection criteria. So for clarity, use the outline criteria in your program narrative. Use appropriately descriptive file names. I think Melissa mentioned that earlier. That really helps us a lot as it helps peer reviewers in reviewing your applications if you have really descriptive file names. Also, check your application against the solicitation requirements. So if you're especially if you're doing multiple purpose areas, because each purpose areas may have their own little nuances, and they're probably going to be different in some ways. They're going to be different requirements. So please be sure to thoroughly read each of those, all the requirements for the purpose areas that you're applying for. And make sure that any items that you list in your budget are reasonable and allowable. And also, to the extent that you can, make sure that your calculations are correct. Because really what happens is if, the better shape that your budget is in, if you do ultimately get awarded, then the quicker you'll have access to your funding, because it won't be as much time spent internally reviewing your budget, coming back to you with questions, and then that really, so just make sure that your budget is in good shape. Also, ensure that any budget items that you list in the budget are tied to your program narrative. So don't put something in the budget that doesn't relate to your program narrative, or vice versa. Don't talk about something in your program narrative that you don't have in your budget. But I would just want to make sure that you really tie that information together pretty tightly. Also, make sure the budget narrative is clear and understandable. Again, you'll have sections. There's going to be your budget narrative and your budget detail worksheet. The narrative is definitely where you really want to make sure that you're really clear about what you're requesting. And then, if you have any indirect cost items or indirect costs, make sure you include any sort of the most current indirect cost rate with your application as well. Okay. I just wanted to touch base with you real quick on just some important websites to remember. So for all the key CTAS documents, you can go to grants.ojp.usdoj.gov/CTAS. Also, I think what's really important is that you look at the grants financial guide. I think, what we find sometimes is some folks may apply for grants, but, they may not know the extent to which, they have to report, or, what some of the, what's unallowable, what's not allowable. So the grants financial guide is really a great resource to really get, to help acclimate you to our grants making process. And it hopefully would help you manage your grant as well. But it's best to really start reading that now, as opposed to waiting until you get the grant and trying to figure out whether or not you can meet the requirements of the programs. The grants management system, GMS, again, as Melissa mentioned, that's where you need to apply for your funding. That's the only way, unless if you have some issues. There is a phone number provided. Please make sure you contact that phone number. If for some reason you cannot, file your grant application and GMS, but that's really our sole mechanism for getting your applications in. The Tribal Justice and Safety website, again, if you're on this call, you probably have already accessed that, but that is our fulcrum, if you will, for all things that are tribal, DOJ, tribal grant programs, training, webinars, events. So that's a really good resource to have. And also, I would recommend that if you haven't already done so, you register as a subscriber on that website. And what you can do is you just go to the DOJ Tribal Justice website, and then at the bottom of the page, there's a button there's a thing that says email updates. You click on email updates, then you become a subscriber. So what happens is we send you any DOJ opportunities that come up, not just CTAS or tribal specific, but also non-tribal grant programs that we're going to be rolling out starting March, in March 20th, March 2020, if you will. And so that's a really good way to kind of keep on top of that. The OJP Grants Resource Guide, again, more information to really kind of help you with your grant writing. That's ojp.gov/funding. You can also find out what kind of programs have been funded in the past through that website as well. Then also there's the program office specific website as well for COPS, OJP, and OVW. Okay, so if you have technical assistance issues with the grants management system, please call the GMS hotline. Again, I think a lot of my colleagues would agree that, please do not wait to the last minute to try to submit your application, because what happens is we do get folks that wait, and then they have some technical problems that come up, and it's on the day of, and so we get that GMS hotline gets flooded with calls, and sometimes there may not be the bandwidth to help everyone walk them through their application to help them get in the system. So please try to start that process early as possible. Any programmatic and general assistance, then you would contact our DOJ Response Center. What the DOJ Response Center does is if you send them a question, they can actually determine who the program manager is for the specific purpose area that you're applying for, and then they can direct you to that person, and that person will get back to you in a timely manner, because we do realize that this is everything, all the questions are time sensitive as far as we're concerned. Okay, so actually we're at the Q&A moment. So I guess if we want to either, I'm sorry, one of my colleagues, James, would you like to?
So before we get into QA, there are a few things that I just want to make sure that are clarified, that you have the correct information on. For the abstract, it's regardless if you're applying for one or more than one purpose area, each abstract needs to be at least 500 words. It can't be more than that. So we want at least 500 words for each abstract, or up to 500 words essentially. And then for the template, for the templates, they are all required this year. So you have to use the formats for the templates that we required, and it's listed in each template, and it actually says that. The timeline, I want to clarify that too. It is a required document, but it could have been confusing the way it was listed in the PowerPoint. It doesn't carry the same level in terms of the budget and purpose area narrative and the tribal and community justice profile. Those three things, if you're missing one of those, you will not move forward to peer review, but that will not happen if you don't turn in the timeline. That doesn't carry the same weight. So I just want to clarify that. And then for the OVW pre-award risk assessment questions, there is no page limit on answering those questions. You take as many pages as you need to answer the Purpose Area 5 pre-award risk assessment questions.
Great. Thank you, James. We appreciate that. So with that, Wendy, do you want to take it from here?
Great, thank you. And for the question and answer portion, we will make notations when a question is answered. If more information is needed, please respond with additional clarifying information, and a follow-up question will be asked. And our first question is, we are having trouble getting the narrative that we typed into the construction box in purpose area number 4 that allows construction. We type it in, and if we click anywhere after we type the narrative in, it then disappears. Are you able to advise or assist on how we're able to get this in?
I was going to say, as far as the question regarding the budget detail worksheet, I believe I did get an email from, I think, the person that's inquiring about that. So I can follow up with her on that, because I don't know, this is the first time I'm hearing that this is happening, but I can follow up with her specifically on this.
Great, thank you, Julius. And another question is it old-fashioned for people to use footnotes in grant applications, or do you still prefer and like to have people do this in their applications?
What, provide scholarly citations so that they're,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, to the extent that folks do that, that's helpful content, so we would appreciate that.
Great, thank you, Julius. And is there a way to make the template default to the format requirements? In other words, can it default to the 12-point font and not the 11-point font in which it is currently showing?
You just need to highlight the text and change it to 12-point font. There's no way for us to pull those back at this point. But we've put in the solicitation that it's 12. You can make sure that you highlight whatever you're typing and make sure that it's 12.
Great, thank you, James. And where is the template for pending application found?
I don't think there is one. I think you just create, go ahead, sorry.
If you look in the solicitation itself on page 8, it discusses the disclosure of pending applications. There's a suggested format for if you have applications. There's also suggested language for if you don't, but there is no official template or for how it's structured.
Great, thank you, Dara. And is there a specific font size and type for the narratives?
You just need to use a size 12 font. We didn't say whether it needed to be Times Romans or anything like that. We'll leave that up to you, but just make sure that it's 12. The size is 12.
Great, thank you, James. And for the timeline, if we are applying for more than one purpose area, do we put both timelines into one document, or is it okay to have two separate documents for the timelines?
The way that we set up the template was so that it would be a continuous flow. So like if you needed 2 or 3 pages for your purpose area 1 timeline, that was fine. And if it flowed 2 or 3 pages for your purpose area 2 timeline, that's fine. But if you would like to separate them, that's okay as well. But we set up the template in a way that it would just continue to flow as you're doing your various timelines for more than one purpose area. But we won't hold it against you if you decide to just make the documents completely separate. If you do that, it still needs to follow the format of the template. So essentially what you could do is save the template a couple times for each purpose area, but you need to use the template we provided.
Great, thank you, James. As a follow-up, should the timeline be saved in the other attachments section?
Were you asking if the timeline needed to be? Essentially you would just attach a document entitled timeline. There isn't going to be a place in GMS where it just says put your timeline here. So yes, just make sure that you attach a document entitled timeline so that we know what it is. Great,
thank you, James. And is there a page limit for the timeline?
No.
Great, thank you. And if applying for multiple years, if a project is 3 years in length, should the timeline show all 3 years or only year 1?
The timeline should show all 3 years if that is a 3-year project. And again, please refer to the solicitation to determine how long each of the grant periods are.
Great, thank you, Melissa. And a question for purpose area number 5. Is the privacy certificate required for purpose area 5?
Yes, turn that in. It is required.
Great, thank you, James. And is the accounting system and capabilities the risk assessment questionnaire for purpose area number 5?
They are two very different things. So for purpose area 5, you are not going to be doing the financial capability questionnaire. You are going to be filling out the 10 pre-award risk assessment questions.
Great, thank you, James. And some of the noted forms in the webinar are not on the website. Where can we find them? Specifically, the forms are applicant disclosure of pending applications, financial management internal controls, and applicant disclosure of high risk.
There's actually, if you look at the solicitation for each of those sections, for each of those items, there is a link at the bottom of the page that you folks can click on to get those forms for each of those requirements.
Great, thank you. And another question regarding the program area checklist. The program area checklist contains more and different information than what is required in the template. What should we follow?
Please follow the template directions. So for example, in area 1, the narrative template says up to 8 pages, but the solicitation says 10. Just follow the actual purpose area narrative template.
Thank you, Melissa. And is there a standard budget required in addition to the workbook?
The budget workbook is the standard budget template that you're going to be using. So you need to use that for each purpose area in which you're applying. So nothing else should be submitted outside of that template.
Great, thank you, James. And a question for purpose area number 5. Is there a file naming protocol for the narrative? And what is that?
Absolutely. Purpose area 5, project narrative. While we're on that question, that answer would be the same for each purpose area that you choose to apply for.
Great, thank you, James. And a question about the budget. Should we show in-kind resources in the budget?
Can Michael or Angela answer that question?
For OVW, purpose area 5, no.
For purpose area 1, no. Same for purpose area 6, no.
And for purpose area 8 or 9, the answer is no as well.
For any BJA purpose areas, the answer is no as well.
Great, thank you, everyone. And another question is GMS the same as grants.gov?
No, it's not. The grants.gov is actually the portal for all federal grants applications, but CTAS is different in that CTAS does not go through grants.gov. You have to apply directly to GMS to apply for CTAS.
Great, thank you, Julius. And a follow-up to the previous question, the checklist notes grants.gov. Please advise if there's anything needed in grants.gov.
Okay, Wendy, we're back actually, and there may be a little bit of confusion because the checklist has a grants.ojp website, which is actually where all the grant documents reside for CTAS, but it's not the same as grants.gov. So the answer to that question is no. There's no need to check anything at grants.gov for this particular application process.
Great, thank you for the clarification, Julius. And a question for purpose area number 4, this is a question regarding 4 different purpose areas. We are applying for 4 purpose areas. I've attached the other documents, budget narratives, timeline, resumes, all separately by purpose area. Does that work for your organizational style to keep them separate, or are you expecting all files to be combined as attachments?
Hi, this is James. Do not make one PDF of all your purpose area applications. They should be separate. So do not make one big complete file. It should be, make the document separate for each purpose area that you're applying to.
Great, thank you, James. And a question regarding the SFLLL. As far as the SFLLL, it was stated that whether the tribe performs the lobbying activities or not, but the form itself looks like it is only for reporting activities. If no federal dollars are used for lobbying, how do we disclose that?
You can use NA. You can put NA, or you can literally say that no dollar. I've seen it both ways. So NA, or literally say that no dollars are being used.
Great. Thank you, James. And another question is the disclosure of high risk the same as the pre-award risk assessment?
They are two separate things. So the pre-award risk assessment questions are questions that OVW Purpose Area 5 use to determine things that we need to know for our office. But that is very different from being designated high risk and having to disclose if you're on a high risk status. I would encourage the person to ask the question. In the solicitation, there's a detailed breakdown of what that is. So just refer to that and you'll see that the two items that you're referring to are very different.
Great. Thank you, James. And the sample forms on the website often do not have a signature block. For example, the certificate of lobbying, standard assurances. Is there another form that we should be using?
All of those documents also have a sample watermark across them. They're put there just so you can see what the real documents look like, but the real documents that you're going to be turning in are in GMS.
Great. Thank you, James.
So that I will add to that OJP website link that's listed in the checklist takes you to the actual real downloadable, fillable documents that you would be using for your application.
Great. Thank you, James. And there does not appear to be a template on the grants.ojp.usdoj.gov/CTAS page. Please advise.
A template for what? What template are they looking for? I didn't catch that part.
We'll follow up for additional clarification on that one, James. And while we reach out, there is another question, and that is, do you want all documents in a PDF, even the budgets, or just the Word narrative?
The budget should be in Excel, and if you choose to convert so in GMS, in the applicant site in GMS, the downloadable forms are all Word. You can leave them that way, or once you fill them out and you're satisfied with them in their final, if you want to make those PDFs, that's okay as well.
Great. Thank you, James. And is the abstract the same as the cover sheet template?
Yes, it is. But I would also say one other thing about that. Please make sure that you read the entire application cover sheet, because there is a question on the last page that you need to answer that's separate from just writing your abstract.
Great. Thank you, James. And it appears that the answer to the template question was already provided earlier. We do have a question for Purpose Area 9, and that is to clarify if Purpose Area 9 is for 5 years for 2020 or 3 years. 5 years, correct?
Yes, the project period for FY20 grants under Purpose Area 9 is 5 years.
Great. Thank you, Kara. And is it okay if a smaller font is used in charts? For example, using a 10 font instead of a 12?
Certainly. You can feel free to use a smaller font size in the chart, but you just want to be sure that it's not a strain for people to read. Because to the extent that peer reviewers can't, read it, then it's going to be more difficult for them to score it correctly.
Great. Thank you, Kara. And another question on the timeline. What is the spacing requirements on the timeline? Does it have to be double spaced?
There are no spacing requirements on the timeline. You can, determine that yourself. However you choose to do it is going to be acceptable. You'll just need to make sure that it's readable and that it's not going to pose a difficulty for peer reviewers to understand what it is that you're submitting. Great.
Thank you, Kara. And another question is, the NOFO states an application cover sheet, applicants must include a high-quality project abstract for each purpose area under which the applicant is requesting funding. It should summarize the proposed project in 400 words or less, 500 words or less for applicants requesting funding in multiple purpose areas. The fillable application cover sheet template for the abstracts can be found in the GMS along with other documents needed to complete the application at the grants.ojp.usdoj.gov CTAS website. It appears from this that you want one with 500 words, or do you want an abstract for each purpose area?
We're actually just going to take a minute and we'll be right back to you with that answer.
Great. Thank you, Kara.
Okay. We have an answer on the question about the abstracts, and we know that people are, looking at various documents in order to determine this, and we appreciate the questions and the need for clarification. What we are advising is that you follow the directions in the abstract template. There's an abstract template just like there's a budget template and just like there's a template for each narrative. So if you go in there and follow that abstract, you'll find that it says that each purpose area can use up to 500 words for their abstract. And so if you can follow that, that's the direction that we intended to give in all these different documents.
Great. Thank you, Kara. And another question is, I am unable to add additional narrative text within the budget workbook. Is there a way to enter the budget narrative directly under each budget category as we have in the past?
I assume this applicant is a Purpose Area 1 applicant, and if so, we actually grade out 4 areas of the Purpose Area 1 budget worksheet, specifically the equipment, travel, supplies, and other costs. We grade out those bigger narrative boxes in order for you to put all your information right above in the item narrative box. So if you are asking about Purpose Area 1, it is still, you still enable the budget worksheet, you still do your budget justification, the who, the what, the why, but instead of using those bigger narrative boxes, we want you to put it in the item description right above that. So if that is a Purpose Area 1 applicant, that's why we just grade out those 4 big narrative boxes, but you can still put everything that you need in the item description narrative box right above that.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And is the list of references, does that need to be included as part of the page limit for the narrative?
Can you please ask for a little bit of clarification? I'm assuming that this may be the same person that asked about footnotes and scholarly references. If you could please ask for a little more clarification when you say references.
Sure. We'll follow up and ask for clarification. And while we wait, another question is, where can I find the privacy certificate?
Okay, that is on the Tribal Justice and Safety website. So it's usdoj.gov/tribal, and it's under miscellaneous documents.
And it's the second to the last document in that list.
It's the second to the last document in the list.
Great. Thank you, Kara. And we did receive additional follow-up regarding the references, and that is, instead of footnotes, if you list references separately, is that included in the page limit?
It will take away from your page limit. You're adding, the more text you put in there, the more pages you're eating up. Maybe an alternative would be just to attach in other attachments, just a doc. I've seen this before where applicants have just listed like the references and sources used. That's fine as well. That's a strategic way to make sure that you're not eating up your page limit.
Great. Thank you, James. And can letters of support address more than one purpose area?
Surface level, my answer would be yes, but I wouldn't advise it. And I would tell you to think of it from this standpoint. If you're applying to 4 purpose areas or 5 purpose areas and you're turning in 1 letter, I know for purpose area 5, we're going to be looking to see how dynamic and important this partnership is and the detail of it. I don't think you'd be able to do that if you're including 4 other purpose areas. So my advice would be to keep the letters of support separate so that each office can see the level of commitment and support that you're getting. I wouldn't tie it together with other purpose areas. I'm not telling you that you can't. I'm just telling you what I think would probably work better.
Great. Thank you, James. And are the letters of support different from the letter that is required for the collaborative partnership? The solicitation mentions that the letter must be received prior to the receipt of award and the release of grant funds.
I would recommend the individual asking this question that you look at each purpose area's requirement to see if they even require a letter of support at first. And for Purpose Area 5 OBW, we are considering those letters collaborative partnerships. And there's a section in the solicitation that says exactly who those letters need to be from, and there's sample templates of those letters. There's links in the solicitation and on the Tribal Safety and Justice website. There, under miscellaneous documents, there's an actual link where you can click to see the sample letter of support or collaborative partnership letters that you need to model that under.
Great, thank you, James. And for purpose area 9, what is the maximum award for that purpose area?
Okay, thanks very much. This is in regards to the question about purpose area 9. I see that there's a reference in the quick start guide that the awards are up to $450,000. And in the solicitation, it's that the awards are $400,000. Please use the $400,000 figure for purpose area 9.
Great, thank you, Kara. And regarding letters of support, if you have letters of support, do you also then need to have MOUs?
Again, I think I want to reiterate what James said earlier, but each purpose area is going to be different. So, for those purpose areas where an MOU may be a requirement, then I would make sure you submit that. But I would not assume that letters of support and MOUs are synonymous.
Great, thank you, Julius. And for purpose area number 9, my understanding is that year 1 is a planning year for purpose area 9. Does this mean that we should not budget for full implementation until year 2?
Thank you. Yes. The first year is a planning year. There can be some exceptions if you have a strategic plan already in place that is specific and detailed enough for this program. Some programs would be implementing earlier. So it sort of depends on your situation. If you do not have a very specific and detailed strategic plan, then you should assume that you will have a planning year and budget accordingly for that.
Great, thank you, Kara. And regarding the budget worksheet, for other purpose areas besides purpose area 1, should we use the big box narratives if it allows you to, or should other purpose item description above? We also provided separate budget narratives for further explanation as an attachment for each purpose area.
For the other purpose areas, you should use the large narrative box within the budget detail worksheet. Unless if for some reason have way too much information, which should be very rare, perhaps unless it's maybe a construction budget for purpose area 4. For the most part, you should be able to put everything right directly into that budget detail worksheet in the larger narrative box.
Great, thank you, Dara. For purpose area 3, if progress is satisfactory and the money runs out at the end of year 3, can a grantee then apply for 2 additional years?
I'm guessing this has to do with the fact that these are 5-year awards. And so for the most part, depending on what your plan is, your budget should be for the 5 years, and you shouldn't necessarily be running out of money. If it is, say, a project where you're looking to purchase equipment like a computer software or something like that, or if you're only budgeting initially for 3 years, we can potentially close out the award early, but then you'd have to competitively apply again for future funding.
Great, thank you, Dara. And during the planning year, are grantees made aware of their special condition to work with TTA centers?
Yes, grantees are made aware of that in our new grantee orientation, and the special conditions are on their award. I'm going to assume that question is for purpose area 9, and so that's the answer for purpose area 9. If the person who's asking it meant it for a different purpose area, if you can clarify that.
Great, thank you, Kara. And can you please clarify which forms need to be signed electronically?
Any form that is in GMS, like for instance the certifications and assurances, those are going to be signed electronically. You are not printing those off and providing hand copy signatures for those. If there's not a signature block, then you're going to be signing it electronically.
Great, thank you, James. And can you please clarify one more time if the abstract is the same as the cover sheet?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Great, thank you. And can you please clarify who signs the assurances? Is it the POC or the FPOC?
It's typically the authorized representative, but I mean that's determined by your agency. I mean, we often see tribal chairmen. Sometimes I know cops, it can be the governor if it's the authorized rep. You make that determination at your level. We can't really make that determination. It's whoever's able to accept awards on behalf of the tribe, typically.
Great. Thank you, James. Do any of our presenters or panelists have any tips or information that they would like to share for our attendees as they prepare their applications?
I would just say if you haven't registered for GMS by now, you should probably do that as soon as you get off of this webinar. I would do it ASAP. We like to tell you to do that as early as possible, minimum 2 weeks. So that would have been the 11th the other day. But, I mean, you still have time. We would encourage you to do that. Definitely go through the solicitation and make sure that you're looking at the specific requirements for each purpose area that you're using. Again, the templates that we provided are required this year, so just please make sure that you use those. Specifically, the application cover sheet, we have set it up in a way where really all you have to do is plug in certain words. It's kind of written for you already, so just follow that format. It makes it easier for you and us. Don't wait till the last minute. Also, triple check your documents. If you submit something in track changes, we have to accept it that way. We can't go in and turn track changes off later. So make sure that you're turning in the version that you want. One thing that we did last year with GMS is that the system won't let you submit an application if it recognizes that you're missing one of the 3 things that are required to go to to peer review. And that would be your tribal community and justice profile, budget workbook and budget narrative, and your purpose area narrative for each purpose area in which you're applying. So what that means is if you submit your tribal community and justice profile and your budget, but you don't put in a purpose area narrative, you won't be able to move forward. And it's going to recognize that you need one if you're applying for more than one purpose area. It's going to say if you're applying for 3, then it's going to be expecting to see 3 purpose area narratives there. What the system won't do is be able to check to make sure that you didn't put a budget in the purpose area narrative or a resume in your tribal community justice profile. So you still need to triple check to make sure that you are in fact uploading the correct document. And we close at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please follow the late submission instructions if you run into any type of issues. If you do run into an issue and we contact you the next morning, please make sure that you are very responsive to us and following the instructions that we give you in terms of submitting your application.
Thank you. And Wendy, I have one additional thing to add. This is Julius. So just one thing I'd like to emphasize, and I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of like a peer reviewer, just ensure that you are responsive to all the questions and the template. So if for some reason you don't have data that's requested, please, I would state that instead of just leaving it blank, because if you just leave it blank and you don't provide context for why you don't have the response, that can actually result in maybe a points deduction because it seems like you weren't being responsive to the requirement. So just keep that in mind.
Excellent. Great information, James and Julius. And it appears that there's no additional questions at this time. Do any of our other panelists have any final comments to share?
No, I think we're all set on our end. Thanks, though.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great day.